The End of Poverty, directed by Felipe Diaz, presented by Tyekia Rollerson. Felipe Diaz was born in Paris, France. He studied philosophy at the Sorbonne in Paris and began his film career as a director in 1980. Diaz and Bev Portillo, his partner on the project The End of Poverty, spent several months visiting countries and continents where poverty is growing with the goal of letting impoverished people speak for themselves. The form of the documentary was of particular importance to me, not as much as the content, of course, but we were going with the mission to change people's perception of the true cause of poverty. Summary of The End of Poverty. The End of Poverty is a daring, thought provoking, and very timely documentary by award winning filmmaker Felipe Diaz revealing that poverty is not an accident. It began with military conquest, slavery, and colonization that resulted in the seizure of land, minerals, and forced labor. Today, global poverty has reached new levels because of unfair debt, trade, and tax policies. In other words, wealthy countries exploiting the weaknesses of poor developing countries. The film highlights several families and workers who speak about losing their jobs in land and working long hours in poor conditions for wages that rarely cover the cost of food and shelter. Global poverty in the 15th century. The film opens with the question, why does poverty persist in a world of growing wealth? The answer is revealed historically. It begins in 1492 with the Spanish and Portuguese conquest of Americas. Not only was the mineral wealth of Latin America plundered, the indigenous economies were destroyed by forced mining on a massive scale and the creation of plantation agriculture. The creation of an economy based on the export of raw materials has remained a structural problem to this day. The End of Poverty. The documentary is filmed in the slums of Africa and Latin America. Today, the World Bank estimates that developing world spends $13 in debt repayment for every $1 it receives in grants. The End of Poverty seeks to remind us that the global victory of capitalism over the last 30 years has only brought its flaws into sharper focus. Colonialism in Africa. Colonialism is defined as the establishment and maintenance of rule for an extended period by sovereign power over a subordinate and alien people that is separate from the ruling power. Taking this definition, we can see that a number of African nations were colonized by Western power, which resulted in the seizure of land and minerals, leaving many families with nothing. Poverty in sub-Saharan Africa and Latin America. What are the causes of hunger and poverty in Africa? The principal cause of poverty are harmful economic systems, conflict, environmental factors such as drought, climate change, and population growth. Poverty itself is a major cause of hunger. As stated in the film, the Southern Hemisphere Africa is financing the North at about $200 billion every year. Poverty in Latin America is widespread, but mostly has seen slow, small improvement in recent years. The indigenous peasants are the poorest people, and their extreme poverty seems mainly due to unfair distribution of wealth. Some facts about global poverty. Nearly half of the world's population, more than 3 billion people, live on less than $2.50 a day. More than 1.3 billion live in extreme poverty. 1 billion children worldwide are living in poverty. According to UNICEF, 22,000 children die each day due to poverty. It will cost approximately $40 billion to offer basic education, clean water and sanitation, reproductive health for women, and basic health and nutrition to every person in every developing country. The World Food Program says the poor are hungry and their hunger traps them in poverty. Hunger is the number one cause of death in the world, killing more than HIV and AIDS, malaria, and tuberculosis combined. This map shows the percent of population living below the poverty line. In the news, Obama overcoming poverty and violence hard, but can be done. President Barack Obama said that children from communities racked by poverty and violence need help from the government, schools, family, and clergy to have a chance to climb ladders of opportunity, to reach the middle class and beyond. Some solutions to ending poverty. Poverty will never end unless there are real solutions to end it. Solutions based on economic justice and political changes. Some other solutions to ending poverty include donations, child nutrition programs, and work support programs. Citations: